Coming up on Network Africa. Aid organizations seek help for thousands of civilians trapped in the northern region of Mozambique. Several students still missing after gunmen attacked their school in Kaduna State, northwest Nigeria. Plus, Zulu King Goodwill's Willie dies in South Africa at the age of 72. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. Aid organizations are appealing for help in Mozambique, where thousands of civilians are trapped in the northern town of Palma. Residents are desperate for food and supplies are running low, with all roads to the town cut off by Al-Shabaab militants. In recent days, they have attacked nearby villages, carrying out abductions and beheadings, with 500,000 people forced from their homes in the past year by an Islamist insurgency which began in 2017. Aid agencies are calling it an urgent and forgotten humanitarian crisis. In the meantime, Mozambican President Filipe Nyusi has sacked his army and air force chiefs as the country battles an Islamist insurgency in the north and a rebellion by a militia linked to the main opposition party. A statement from the presidency on Thursday night did not give a reason for firing Major General Ezekiel Isaac Muyanga, head of the army, and Major General Messias Andre Mpuso, head of the Air Force. The president also sacked the commander and deputy commander of the Marshal Samora Machel Military Academy and the deputy commander of the Higher Institute of Defense Studies. Mozambique has been battling the insurgency in the mineral-rich province of Cabo Delgado since October 2017. 500,000 people are said to have been forced from their homes in the past year alone. And here in Nigeria, 30 students are still missing after gunmen attacked the Federal College of Forestry in Kaduna State on Thursday night, kidnapping several students and staff. According to the Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security, Samuel Aruwan, troops of the Nigerian Army immediately moved to the school and engaged the armed bandits, rescuing 180 persons in the process.
We cannot account for about 30 students. This is the present situation. I am also here to inform you that the military and other security agencies are working around the clock. Some of the students that were rescued sustained injuries, just bruises within the school environment. They are presently receiving medical attention at a military facility. Certainly, military and other security agencies are working around the clock.
And parents and relatives of the missing students could be seen on the school premises, which also has a large number of security agents. A mother whose daughter is still missing spoke with Channels Television.
When I hear people, they rush for outside for Angwa. Machine, motor, I just come out outside. I hear people, I walk out, reach my Angwa side. I go ask, I greet them, people gather there. So my Angwa say, Banga. They don't enter forestry. 2 people come back, tell them, say, na girls, they pack them. So na forestry, the thing happen. When I come back, they call, try a blessing number. The line, they ring, but she no pick for me. Even this morning, we call, she no pick. As I will come, then tell us, say, some girls fear, make them, then throw away their phone, then pick some of the phone. Say, some girls, they Rubado continent. So we send one of our brother, like my husband's senior brother, when be Cote, go there find see her among the girls where they there. My one problem is say may God bring her for me alive. Because may government do something. All these things we dey hear and far away now, you don't reach where we dey. Which one would they inside now? Would they our house will not safe? Children they school they not safe. Now they say government no want make our children go school. Me I don't know. I don't know wetin I go talk past that one. Make them go rescue our children. Make them bring our children back for us.
And also in West Africa, Cote d'Ivoire's President Alassane Ouattara has announced an 8-day mourning period to begin on Friday, following the death of Prime Minister Hamid Bakayoko. In a statement on Thursday night, President Ouattara said flags would be flown at half-mast throughout the country and its embassies abroad. The Prime Minister died of cancer in Germany, and his body is expected to arrive in the commercial capital, Abidjan, on Saturday. Official sources say his burial is scheduled for Friday, the 19th of March. King Goodwill's Zwelithini of the Zulu nation in South Africa has died in hospital where he was being treated for diabetes-related issues. The royal family said in a statement that King Zwelithini died on Friday at the age of 72. The king was the leader of South Africa's largest ethnic group and an influential traditional ruler. He was admitted to hospital in KwaZulu-Natal last week to monitor his ongoing condition. The King's Prime Minister thanked South Africa for its continued prayers and support in this most difficult time. In the meantime, South Africans are mourning the death of Zulu King Goodwill Zwelithini. Residents of Johannesburg have been reacting with shock to the king's passing.
It's a great loss, to us as South African community, in particular the Amazulu nation, and then to his family as well. It's a great loss, given the fact that historical magnitude of Amazulu, him leading Amazulu through difficult times during apartheid, seeing Amazulu nation triumph to democratic dispensation.
I'm feeling very bad because it's my king. Yeah. I'm a Zulu person. I'm born from KwaZulu-Natal.
We've lost our pillar. We've lost our leader. We've lost someone who was so culturally aware, someone who was bringing all the pieces together. I feel like it's not just the loss for the Zulu nation, but the loss of culture in itself and the people in South Africa, because that's what we're all about.
Our South Africa Bureau Chief Betty Dibia joins us now for more on this. Betty, a really, really sad day today, isn't it?
It's indeed sad, as you heard all those people talking about, and the political leaders, those in government as well, extolling the virtues and all the contributions that he made in the development of the democracy in the country, community development, education, agriculture, and name it. So many people are sad, and he's been king for quite a number of years. So that's the only Zulu king that they know. So it's sad for his family. He's quite an influential king. When His Royal Majesty King Goodwill Zwelithini spoke, the Zulu nation listened. So he had quite a lot of influence within the country. And also he made a lot of impact projecting his country outside as well.
Yeah, like we heard there, I'm sure tributes have been pouring in to the late king and his family. What plans does the South African government have in honouring him?
For now, that is not made clear. But what I know is his body, for now, they're waiting for what his family will decide. The royal family is still gathering to know what next to do. But I know that for now, his body will lie in state for a few days. That, I don't know if it will still happen, because we understand from Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who is the prime minister, who actually made the official announcement, is saying that he died from COVID-related complications. He was diabetic, probably while he was being treated, that got in there. I don't know if he will still lie in state for a few days for people to view and pay tribute before he's buried. But the government officials will be visiting the family tomorrow, especially the provincial government. That's KwaZulu-Natal. That's where he was from. And he said the premier of the province, Sikle Zikalala, has said that they've requested a state funeral from the president. We haven't heard the outcome of that. There will be a week of mourning in KwaZulu-Natal province. And on Thursday, the 18th, there will also be a prayer for what he called the Zulu nation, in honor of the king. So we don't know what the government will do to honor him after that. But right now, it's just the arrangements on what to do.
Yeah, Betty, with this unfortunate event now, for the royal family, what's the future for the king's throne?
I don't think there will be any controversy there. It's a very strong institution and there's a process, but they're not addressing that just yet. After all, he died today. Remember, when his father, King Cyril Bekuzulu, died in 1968, he was barely 20, but he was appointed the king only to be crowned a few years later because he had to hide a bit for his own safety, in his words. So there's a process, and the Zulu nation, you have a lineage of kings, and it's a very strong institution. So we don't even know if there will be any controversy, but there is a process, and they will make that clear who will be appointed the king as soon as possible.
All right, then, Betty, our thoughts with South Africans at this time. Thank you so much for bringing us up to speed.
Thank you very much.
Moving on now, U.S. President Joe Biden is deeply concerned about the crisis in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says the president is deeply concerned and highly engaged on the issue. She said the president also recognized the humanitarian crisis in the region, with his administration keen to help improve the situation, including getting aid workers full access into the region. Meanwhile, a senior Ethiopian diplomat on Thursday resigned in protest over alleged atrocities being committed in the ongoing conflict in the northern Tigray region. African Affairs analyst Mr. Chike Chude joins us now on the program for more on this story. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So what do you make of the resignation of Ethiopia's deputy chief of mission to Washington over the conflict in Tigray?
I think it's a big thing. It's a very big issue. I mean, it is one thing for the United Nations and maybe for other countries and the international organizations, especially the international NGOs. It's one thing for them to make accusations of on the humanitarian crisis and the refugee situation in Ethiopia and the killings of Ethiopians by government forces. But it's another thing for a high-ranking official, a representative of the Ethiopian government, to give credibility to these allegations by resigning in protest over the killings going on in Ethiopia. So beyond one day, I mean, it is easy for people to say, look, United Nations, it could be exaggerating or international organizations are exaggerating. But when an official representing the government, at that level resigns in protest, then you will know that there's credibility in the reports that are being, bandied about by the United Nations and other bodies. And I think, it clearly shows the level of anger and how dire the humanitarian situation being provoked by the Ethiopian government forces, is. So that is the only way one can look at this resignation. It's a very big issue and lends credence to the accusations that have been traded against the Ethiopian government about the abuse of, humanitarian abuse in that part of the continent.
The United States, just very quickly, Mr. Chide, the U.S. and the UN have both warned of grave human rights abuses being committed in Tigray, but it seems the international community is hesitant to interfere in this matter. Why do you think that is?
Well, it is not a new thing. This is the way it goes. When crises emanate, leading to conflict, it could be low-level conflict, It might not be intense at the initial stage. So you have all kinds of movements, international diplomacy here and there, with people trying to bring some semblance of sanity to what is going on, putting pressure on all sides to the divide, in this case, especially the Ethiopian government. And so a lot of people do not seem to realize that every single outbreak of conflict that eventually becomes a matter of concern to the international community is something that a lot of nations would drag on, because there are so many interests involved in this, even at the level of United Nations Security Council. You have countries that have different positions about what is going on, how they think the matter should be approached. And so by the time this foot dragging continues, situations get out of hand. That was why we had a Rwanda on our hands at a particular point in time, and the international community realized that they had failed the people of Rwanda. In most of the conflicts across the African continent, that is what happens. So the only way you can stem the tide is to ensure that you do not allow this matter to escalate to get to the point of people or countries beginning to, intervening. It must be nipped in the bud.
All right, then, African Affairs Analyst, Mr. Chikechude, thank you so much for your thoughts on Network Africa. Still ahead on the program, our Africa Tech segment discusses the gender disparity in the technological space. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on the program. Turkey has resumed the diplomatic contacts with Egypt. It broke after the Egyptian military overthrew Islamist President Mohamed Morsi in 2013. Turkey's foreign minister said the foreign ministries and intelligence agencies were back in touch. Turkey's own Islamist government was supportive of Mr. Morsi. Turkey and Egypt have also been at loggerheads over their backing of opposing sides in Libya's civil war and over mineral rights in the eastern Mediterranean. Last August, Egypt signed a deal on maritime boundaries with Turkey's rival Greece, which cut across an earlier agreement between Turkey and Libya's internationally recognized government in Tripoli. Algeria's President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has set the 12th of June as the date for early parliamentary elections. The election is part of political reforms promised by the president to address demands by protesters. The president dissolved the lower house of parliament on the 18th of February, a year ahead of schedule. To douse tensions, elections are now supposed to be conducted within 5 months of the dissolution, and that's according to the country's laws. President Tebboune also released about 60 detainees of the Hirak anti-government protest movement and others who had been waiting trial. Algeria's street protests brought down longtime leader Abdelaziz Bouteflika in 2019 and then continued as the demonstrators pressed in vain for a sweeping away of the rest of the political establishment. Welcome to our Africa Tech segment. Still in the spirit of celebrating women and the impacts they've made on society, our Africa Tech segment will be focusing on the gender disparity in the tech space. Despite Nigeria's rising technological sector, there is still the challenge of how to improve diversity. The number of women in this space is still very low, and more needs to be done to encourage female participation. Our guest today is Stephanie Adesoya, who is the director at the American Corner, hosted at CC Hub. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
So to start with, are you satisfied with the number of women in tech?
So women are actually underrepresented in tech, and even though there's been some progress lately, I believe it's still at a very, very extremely slow rate, slow pace, and there's still a lot more that can be done. And so to your question, I would say no, I am not satisfied with the number of women in tech.
Okay, there's this thinking, among some African parents saying they don't want their daughters to become tomboys because it's a male-dominated field in tech. How would you respond to such fears? And do you think girls have enough role models they can look up to in the industry to get them involved to start with?
Well, actually, being a tomboy is not a bad thing, but that fear is not actually valid, I would say. And this is one of the misconceptions that we have in the tech industry. There's so many misconceptions, like you have to look a certain way to be in tech. You have to dress a certain way. You have to have a certain background or study a certain course to be able to pursue a career in STEM or tech. But like I said, these are just misconceptions. They're not valid. And so I would encourage parents to actually encourage their kids, children, girls, boys, to just pursue their dreams, whether it be tech, sports, whatever. Please pursue your careers in STEM or tech. It doesn't really relate. And yeah, tomboys are not actually bad, like I said. And I'll give an example of myself. I have a background in engineering, master's in engineering as well. And, currently advocating for more girls and more women to pursue careers in STEM. And so I don't think I look like a tomboy, but yeah, to answer your question, yeah, more women need to be in STEM. I don't think parents should have that fear at all. It's not valid.
You hear this saying, tech is the future, basically. Apart from those misconceptions, what do you think are some of the other challenges facing women in the industry?
So one major challenge that I know is facing women is the environment, the enabling environment or the welcoming environment. And so it's no news that tech is a very, very male-dominated environment. So we see a lot of males in the tech ecosystem, but we don't have a lot of females. And if there's a way that the environment could be softened a little, I think we'd see more women coming to the space. The environment is not welcoming enough. And we need to create a more inclusive, equitable, and diverse environment. And if we do that, we'll see more women coming into that space. Also, there's the stigmas, the stereotypes, the bias that exist in the tech industry. If all of these can be broken down, I think there are challenges. And then if we can work towards breaking all of this down, we would see a lot of women coming into this space and then embracing careers in tech.
Stephanie, do you think we need specific policies to address some of these challenges?
Yeah, I think we do need some policies. I would say in the area of education, for example, we need some reforms or some educational policies whereby in schools we can infuse some tech subjects or some tech, topics or teachings into the curriculum for students. And, if we do this, we would see that boys, girls, right up from primary school into GSS 1 to 3 and SS 1 to 3 will start getting acquainted with these topics, with this maths and all of that, and coding and things like that. They'll start getting used to it. And, that's a good way to actually start bringing them into this space. So yeah, I think that's one, the educational sector. If we can infuse some policies, that'll be good. Another policy we can look into is into the area of policing and profiling. And so we've seen that the NSAS movement actually started off from this. And so if we can put some policies in place where they're not targeting young boys, this would help, allay some of the fears that females have. And even parents have some of these fears like, oh, I don't want my kids to go into tech because of course they can be profiled by the police. Yeah. So yes, if we could have some policies in this regard, it will go a long way into helping.
All right, Stephanie, I look forward to a future of more women in tech. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Network Africa.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tenyola Shubowale. Have a lovely weekend.